Today I am making Veggie Pot Pie, and sometimes it's always got vegetables in it, always, and then I will either make it with potatoes, and then it's a true vegetable pot pie, or I'll make it with tofu, and we had some tofu in the fridge that needs to be eaten up, so today I'm making it with tofu. You do not have to use tofu, you can use chicken, you can do it without, you can do whatever you want, but if you do use the potato, you'll want to dice the potato and cook them a little bit before you stick them in with the rest of the pie, or else they will not be cooked and they'll be really crunchy and it won't be very good. I've done that before, so I know. But yeah, so today we're doing Veggie Pot Pie, and you can make that adaptation if you want, and I hope that you enjoy it and that it tastes yummy. So I will see you back soon.
The first thing we're going to do for our Veggie Pot Pie is we are going to make the tofu that we're going to put in it. If you're not a tofu person, you can use another veggie meat, or if you're a meat person, this is where you'd put your chicken. Now, the flavoring is going to be a little bit different for some other stuff, but I'm working with tofu, so that's what I'm going to show you, and you can probably adapt some of the seasoning for chicken or other veggie meats as well. So I have one 12-ounce container of extra firm tofu, and it's diced. So first I'm going to start out by adding that to a pan with just a little bit of oil in it. You don't want a lot of oil. So you want all of this in there. And what you'll want to do is get this going, leave it, because you want the water to cook out of it as much as possible before you do any seasoning or anything else. So I'm just going to let that sit right there, and I'll come back to it occasionally and stir it, but I'll show you how to season it once we get to that point. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and make my sauce for the Veggie Pot Pie. So what you'll need is a saucepan about this size. And let me show you the other ingredients that we will be using. We will need 2 cups of a vegetable broth, or you can use a chicken broth or a beef broth. This is a vegan vegetable or vegan chicken broth that I'm using. You'll also need 1/3 cup of flour. This is 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and just a pinch, a little bit of salt. And then here I have 1/2 tablespoon of vegan chicken seasoning. You can use whatever kind of seasoning you'd like. You'll want to use a fork to mix all of the dry ingredients together first. So we'll put them in there. That includes the flour. And what the flour is going to do is it's just going to work as a thickener. So put all of that together. And today I'm using whole wheat flour. White flour usually works better, but we're completely out of white flour. So I am just using the wheat flour. So you're going to mix it. It doesn't have to be super great. And then, this is where it gets fun, especially when I have a camera, because you need to really have 2 hands for this. But you'll add your 2 cups of broth in there. And then what you're going to want to do is really slowly add the dry mixture, and you'll want to whisk it while you're doing it. So I'm going to try and get this real slow here. Just going to add a little bit and whisk it real good until it's all mixed in. Oh yeah, and you'll want this on a medium heat. You don't want it too high, because if it cooks too quick, it'll be really lumpy. So you just want it on a medium heat. And each time you add more, you stir. And as this is warming up, you're gonna, at first it can kind of sit for a little bit, but once it starts getting warm, you want to mix it continuously until it gets a little bit, till it starts getting a little thicker. So we'll let that sit for a minute and see when I'm done mixing, there shouldn't be any lumps. Let's see, are there any lumps in there? No, I don't see any lumps. So that's how you want it. And just let that sit for a minute. We're going to come back and move our tofu around a little bit. See, it's still pretty wet, so it's not ready. It'll start turning a little bit brown, and that's when we'll start adding some of the seasoning to it. So, while our tofu is cooking, and while our broth for our pot pie is getting warm, we're going to go ahead and start making the biscuits for the top of the pot pie. Now, a lot of times I will make this using a pie crust, but we are using up the things in our kitchen and we don't have the right flour for pie crust right now. So we are going to make a biscuit top. And I use half a recipe of biscuit because if I use a whole recipe it ends up being way too much topping for the pot pie. So let's go ahead and get started mixing that together. You will need 1 cup of flour. Now today I am using all whole wheat flour. You can use all white flour if you want. You can use half and half, but like I said, we're out of white flour, so I'm using all whole wheat flour. And I will also need to add, this is a half a tablespoon of sugar, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, and a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. These are our dry ingredients, so go ahead and add them into our bowl. And I'm going to mix that together. And then I'm going to add in 1/3 cup of milk. Now, I use soy milk. You can use regular milk. You can use whatever you'd like. But 1/3 cup of milk. And then 1/6 cup of oil. So that'll take me up to 1/2 cup of liquid. And so, pour that in there. You can mix it together if you want first. You don't have to. It's not really a big deal. And then I'm going to mix this up. I'm going to stop the camera for just a little bit so I can get this really mixed, and then I'll come back. Here's our biscuit mix, and you can see the consistency. It's a little bit dry, but for pot pie, that's not bad. If you want it a little bit more moist, you can add more milk, but I kind of like it a little flaky for the pot pie. So that is our biscuit mix. And our broth, our gravy mixture, I guess you could call it for the pot pie, is starting to get warm. So I'm going to mix it a little bit more. And when it starts boiling here, which it should do pretty soon, it'll get thicker. So I'm going to mix. And also, have our tofu still cooking. It's starting to get a little brown, which is good. It's still a little bit wet. Ooh, can't get too close, it'll fog up the... It's still a little wet, so it needs to cook a little bit more, but it's starting to get brown, so that's good. And the next thing that we're going to need to do, I guess this isn't quite boiling yet, so we're going to leave it a little more, is to get a bag of mixed vegetables. This is a 32-ounce bag. You can do it a little smaller. I like to stuff my pot pies as full as I can possibly get them. So this is just, this one has green beans and carrots and corn and peas in it, but you can use fresh vegetables. You can get a different kind of vegetable mix. You can do whatever you want, but this makes things really easy. So I'm going to take these out, get them in a dish that we can put in the oven.